As an undergraduate and as a youth, if someone walked up to me and said, "Oh, I'm an SSA to the government," I would not know what you do or what exactly your role affects the government or what your role does to the government. So I think you should clearly define the role of an SSA and how it affects the government.
My name is Adegboyega Adewolu. I work for the good people of Ogun State. I work with the executive governor of Ogun State, and as a special assistant on public-private partnerships. Basically, my role entails me to design, structure, and initiate public-private partnership projects. So we're talking about social infrastructure and public core infrastructure. So social infrastructure, for example, we're talking about hospitals, diagnostic centers, core infrastructure, road, bridges, and all that. But basically, my office, what we do is we act as an intermediary between the private sector entities and the public sector. So what we do is we help the private sector, we attract private sector investors into Ogun State to come and participate and help develop, projects that the government does not have the financial capacity to carry out within a certain period. So we're talking about attracting private sector funds to satisfy public needs.
As a young person, and I think on the issue of involvement of young people in governance. The other time we were talking, and then somebody was like, the issue of confidence. Young people battling with the confidence to be able to go into politics or challenge the government or talk to people in governance. What's your take on this?
Where I motivate myself, going into politics is that I looked at the class of people that are rulers in Nigeria, our leaders, and you find that there's, not all of them. If you speak to them and you really engage them, they don't have that capacity as much as you do. That's why today, if you look at our political space, you find a whole lot of people that are not qualified to be, printing posters, running for elective offices. And for me, I looked at it that, well, I have this, this skill. I have the passion for my country. I'm a great believer in Nigeria. I'm a great believer in change. I'm one of the 70% of young people, the majority, in the country, and I want to be, I want change in my country. I want to see a better country. I want to see a better Ogun State. I want to see a better community, and that for me is what keeps me going, what pushes me, to say, what, I want to be part of the change that my country needs.
What do you think is, okay, for every young person, when there's a mention of politics, the next thing that comes into your mind is embezzlement of funds, enjoying life, rubbing shoulders with the high and mighty in the society, because that's what they believe the government is made up of. What did you think about young people that think like this? If somebody comes up and say, "Mr. Adewolu, you are a political official, government official in Ogun State, and you are young, okay, you could have spent your life doing some other things. Why did you do politics?" And then somebody comes up with this notion of it's because of embezzlement of funds. What do you think?
That's a very wrong perspective to look at, to look at politics and politicians. Basically, there's so much more beyond just embezzling funds. I think the call to duty that every politician should have, first of all, is to serve the people, to serve the nation, to serve your country. That should be the focal point, But in our society, and I think in our generation, we're a bit materialistic. You look at people and say, listen, everyone in government is all about embezzlement, wasting public funds. But you, as an individual, as a young person, if you want change, you need to think that when I get into government, I want to do things differently. Our generation, we need to push the boundary. We need to change our perception and say, well, you know what? It is not about embezzlement. It's about actually serving the people. It's about serving leadership. That is what should drive. That's what drives me every day. Seeing if I'm able to deliver a project, which is what my office. If I deliver a project and I see people enjoying that project, it gives me pleasure. It's not about the perks of office. It's not about the glory that comes with it, or the people say, you work with the governor, you're an aide of the governor. That's not what drives me. That's not what motivates me. What pushes me, for example, is I deliver a project and I see people using that road, or I see people using the hospital. That is what gives me the satisfaction. That's what keeps me going to want to even do even more project. When we try to deliver a housing project and I see the amount of interest that came from investors, I was so excited for my state. I was so excited that, well, if all these people are excited to come into the state, right? Think of the amount of capital they're bringing in. Think about the development. Think about how many jobs we can create. That is what excites me. That is what my office, where I work, that is what gives me the pleasure. It's not about the perks of office. So young people need to start looking beyond the perks of office, or looking beyond it's all about materialism and all about the power. That is not why people should go into politics. They should think of serving the people. So that should be the key objective.
I'm delighted I'm asking this question for two reasons. One, you're a youth, and secondly, you're a government official. My question is, how can we as youths create a credible and dependable representative voice for good governance?
That's a very, very good question, and it's a question that I continually also ask myself. How can we create a credible voice? I think by coming together as one, unifying ourselves as young people. We pushed that data and said, we're 70%. Can you imagine, if 70% of the country, let's even say 40% of the country, which is young people below 35, say we want to vote for a young person? Can you imagine the amount of seriousness that the political elite will take us? They will take us very seriously because we are the majority. So I think that when we come together, knowing what we want, not just coming together alone, unifying ourselves for one common cause, which is that we want to change our country. That is when they'll begin to take us seriously. We have my generation now, I'm a bit, I think there's a bit of materialism with our generation. Someone was saying that people would rather follow the branch than follow the local government on Twitter, or follow all these TV personalities than follow their governor on Twitter, And it just goes to show you that we're not politically sensitive enough. We need to sensitize ourselves as young people and say, this is what we want. And we say to our political elite, to our leaders, this is what we want. And they'll take us seriously because we're the majority. We can decide where the vote goes. We can decide who becomes our governor. We can decide who becomes our president. And until that time when we can unify ourselves in one common cause, that is when we'll have an amplified voice that will be listened to by our leaders.
What's your advice for youths in Nigeria that actually want to get involved with government? Because when people hear government, they feel, the government is too far, or you need to have a lot of money to get involved with the government and to make a change.
Start from your community. Start from where you are. Change starts with the little things. We are, if you speak to one person and you are able to impact on them, that is where change starts from. It's good. That's where it's going to start from. Don't think about people want to be president. Want to be president in a day. You don't start from there. You have to start from the little things that you do. Speaking to one young person and you're able to say, well, this is what you should do. This is what you should do, and you motivate them. Imagine the knock-on effect that will have. That young person speaks to another young person. And it goes on and on like that. That is how we would become. That is where change will come from. We don't need to look at our government is too far off in the center, in Abuja or whatever. Let's start change from our community. Be a community leader. If you are a community leader, and you're impacting people positively, they will listen to you, and that's where you start from. You don't need to say, I want to be governor, I have to be close to the political leaders before I can make change in my community. No. Start from your immediate community. Even if it's a compound, politically sensitize them and say, why don't we vote for these people? Because they've given us a better manifesto, because they said they will do this, they will do X, Y, Z. Then you take it from there. People on your street, you say, listen, why don't we vote for this person? Not because the person is paying you, but because their manifesto is better, because you believe in the ideologies that they're propagating. So that is where I think that young people can come in, really. We, as an enlightened young person, we have more we are more better exposed than some of the rest of us, because we have the privilege to go to school, we have the privilege of the internet, so we're more exposed. So if you look at the manifesto of one party and say, well, look at this is what this party is saying, look at what another party is saying, and you speak to one young person and say, listen, this is what this person is saying, this is what another person is saying, why don't we vote for this person? That is where change will come from. That is how we can determine who our leaders are. That's how we determine who our local government chairman is, who our governor becomes, and then we'll get the right people